It's August 18th, 2017.
This is Nerd Bourbon episode 11. I'm Seth Sturgill.
And I'm Todd Sturgill.
Bro, holy shit. Let me tell you something. And I know you've been kind of hearing me bitch about this. Getting this podcast listed on iTunes and Google Play has been such a headache. Oh my god. Google Play was relatively simple.
Yeah,
it was really only a matter of time.
Yeah, Google Play is like pretty seamless. Like I was actually listening to an episode earlier today.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I want to get the podcast listed on basically every major podcast service so that if there is a podcast service that we're not on that would be more convenient for you guys to listen to us on, I want to be there. If there's one, you know, so hopefully by the time this is all sussed out, we're going to be on iTunes, Google Play, YouTube, SoundCloud, and all that. And if there's anything else that you guys would like to listen to us on, let us know so I can try to get us on there. But man, iTunes in particular has been such a pain in my ass. Like, they accepted us. And by the way, I'm getting no emails about any of this. They accepted us. They said that like we were going to have visibility on the store or whatever. And then when I went for visibility, they rejected us. I'm like, what the hell? And so now it just shows rejected on there, and I can't do anything to it. I'm kind of hoping that I get some sort of explanation soon. Otherwise, I think I'm just going to have to contact Apple. Mm. But I was looking into it, and somebody's like, oh, like, yeah, Apple's really strict about if you have any swear words in any of your episode titles, despite the fact that my ID3 tag says explicit content. I have explicit content notated on our podcast because we have potty mouths, and one of our episodes is titled Carnival of Bullshit. So what I did, I was like, okay, well, let me go ahead and I've tried resubmitting it several times and I don't see any change. So I was like, let me go through every single episode description and let me go through every single title and like kind of star out until we get approved and then I can change it back, you know?
Mm-hmm, I feel that. I
went through and did that and it still just doesn't even let me do anything. So I'm kind of hoping it just sort of unfucks itself after a while because iTunes is kind of the biggest one. Anyway, getting this show on iTunes has been a pain in the ass. What have you been up to this week, sir?
Well, I actually ended up buying LawBreakers, and I dig it. Like, I'm not gonna say like I love it, but I dig the game. It's I know it's getting a lot of it's basically Overwatch, and I'm like
Broverwatch.
Not really. It's it's more of like a Quake or like Unreal Tournament sort of shooter. Mm-hmm. And honestly, it's more, it is character based to a certain extent, but like the characters aren't really characters per se.
Seems like it is a bit of an arena shooter.
Yeah, it definitely is.
Like a fast paced, movement based. Mm-hmm. It is still character based, but that's sort of that's kind of where the gameplay comparisons to Overwatch start and end. But
like that's really it. Like, the characters aren't really characters. There's really nothing memorable about any of them.
They're more so classes, right?
Yeah, they're there's two characters for there's the law characters and there's the breaker characters, and between all those characters, there's like 6 or 7 classes technically.
Yeah.
Like, Vanguard, Gunslinger, Assassin, Titan, or some shit.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, and like I've said to you a few times, I just don't have time for that game. Yeah. There's a part of me that kind of wants to go ahead and get it because I know that you're playing it and I would like to play it with you, and I know it's fun because it's Cliffy B's new game and I like him a lot, and not only do I want to support his first new game with his new studio, but it's similar to the Hellblade thing, which we'll talk about more in a little bit, where they they released it for $30. And it's not, they're not trying to charge full price for what they feel like is not a full price sort of experience. Like, Cliffy B actually threw a little bit of shade at Overwatch before the game came out. He's like, yeah, we're not charging $60 for a multiplayer only game. Fuck that shit.
Ooh, that's delicious. I kind of agree with him though.
Yeah, so I sort of respect that.
The only thing I'll say about Overwatch is Overwatch has like this like really vast lore behind it though.
I guess. I mean, you can have the lore behind it all you want, but
yeah, I do feel you on that.
It doesn't have a single-player mode, really, of any kind, so
yeah.
I do sort of respect his stance on that, and I respect that he put his money where his mouth is and charged half price for his game, so
yeah.
I sort of want to support that, so I don't know, I might wind up picking it up, but
well, shit. If you end up picking it up, that's something we play together.
I definitely want to play it. I'm going to play it at some point, so I don't know. We'll see. But I mentioned Hellblade earlier. We both played that, and we did a episode of Shots about it. So that's going to be up and running by the time you're listening to this. You will hopefully have already heard it, so you'll kind of know our thoughts. But if not, go listen to it. Real quick spoiler for your review of Hellblade, Todd.
I loved it.
Yeah, we both really liked it. Go listen to the Shots episode if you want more detailed thoughts.
Oh man.
The last thing I want to bring up before we move on to our topic is I played this game. I picked it up kind of on a whim because I've heard a lot of people in the industry talk about it. It's called West of Loathing, and it is based on. Are you familiar with Kingdom of Loathing?
No, not at all.
So I was made aware of Kingdom of Loathing a few years back. Kingdom of Loathing is it's like a browser-based MMO from like the early 2000s, and it literally just has like a stick figure kind of like art style to it. I mean, it's dumb. Like it's all about like it's kind of a comedy thing. It sort of exists in the same space as like like a Homestar Runner and like Strong Bad.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of exists in that sort of like Newgrounds kind of world. It's very based on its like writing and its humor. Because it certainly isn't based on its art. It's all stick figures and shitty black and white drawings, But Kingdom of Loathing was kind of an MMO that people have been playing for, it's still going on. People have been playing it for like 14 years. And it's spawned, like, they've had card games and tabletop games based on the Loathing series. Like I said, I was just made aware of it just a few years ago, I think, when they went on Kickstarter for the board game. But now they have West of Loathing, which is an RPG that is on Steam. I think when I picked it up, I don't know how much it's normally retailing for, but when I picked it up, it was like on sale for $9 on a launch deal. But it is a turn-based RPG, sort of in the style of like a Paper Mario, or like a just kind of a simplified RPG. And it takes place in the Wild West, but again, it's that same stick figure art style. Really heavily comedy based. It's so stupid, and I actually am really enjoying it. I'll just give you an example of its comedy. So early on, within the first like 5 minutes of the game, I was exploring the character's bedroom that you wake up in.
Okay.
And I found something that unlocked something in the options called stupid walking.
Oh no, what the fuck?
And like I was like, okay, what is this? So I enabled stupid walking, and now every time my character moves, it is a set. It cycles between a set of different dumb walking animations. So like every time he moves, he might 1 second be doing like an inchworm kind of thing on the ground, or he might just be like flailing his arms in the air. It's so dumb, and I'm gonna leave this on for the entirety of the game. I love this so much.
That's absolutely beautiful.
My character just looks like a fucking idiot, and like again, very dialogue heavy, very humorous. Very just kind of humor based. And there's just some funny shit in the game. Like the graphics settings are good, bad, and ugly because it's all in the Wild West. I like. There was this moment where I had to like ambush this. I had to take down this like bandit camp. Very typical like Western RPG kind of what you would expect.
Okay.
But like the ways in which I could take them down were just funny, and like the callbacks to items that you can pick up in the inventory. I've only put about 2 hours into it or so far, but I'm really enjoying it. It's actually really funny. And it's rare to find a good, funny game these days,
Before we move on to the topic, I do want to shout out one other thing.
Mm-hmm.
Zoidberg zombie mod in Left 4 Dead 2.
That shit's beautiful. We yesterday we downloaded Left 4 Dead 2 just to like mod the fuck out of it and break it.
It did crash.
Beautiful.
It did crash.
It did crash, yeah. The first time that we tried to play it did crash. We had in my game, Todd was playing as Coach with like sexy legs and like pantyhose and high heels. I had a Nicolas Cage flashlight. All of the common infected were Zoidberg going whoop 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 whoop. And I had a candy cane shotgun, the Master Sword and Hylian shield. I had the jockey was Diddy Kong, the tank was Shrek. The ending credits theme, sweet, sweet, sweet victory.
again,
So
like when we started the campaign, I'm like, we got to get to the end just because I need to hear that shit.
it's so good.
Yeah.
It's modding the fuck out of that game is good. But and I feel like we're gonna definitely mod it some more.
Oh, of course.
But anyway, this is going to be another single topic episode, just like we did last week. So we alluded to this in the last episode. Episode 10 was Seth really loves Zelda, so it was like me gushing about Zelda. Episode 11 is sort of the Todd version of this, and it's going to be a single topic Dark Souls episode. So let's get right into it, man. Let's talk about Dark Souls and sort of what makes it so special to you.
Honestly, like, what makes it so special to me is just I got really heavily into the lore of the game, and it's just like, again, I think I said this to you when we were talking about, like, the show notes, is the lore is there if you want it to be there. You can simply play that. You can play that game just as a boss rush if you want. You don't have to sit there and like read everything and like really take in everything about these worlds that they created with these games. And honestly, like, when I was first playing like Dark Souls, like I was pretty. I think I was at a low place, and it was just like one of the first games that I kind of like really fell in love with in a long time.
What's funny about that, when you say that you're in a low place, what's funny is that Dark Souls is sort of like appropriate to play for somebody who's in a low place, because the game is filled with people who are in a low place.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I was basically the crestfallen warrior.
Right. And so basically Dark Souls is sort of a perfect almost metaphor for being somebody who is hopeless and overcoming the obstacles.
Yeah.
But I love the Dark Souls series, not as much as you, obviously. But I do love it.
It's because of me that you actually got back into it, though.
Yeah, it is. It is, because when Demon Souls first came out, I was working at GameStop at the time. This was, I think, 2009, if not earlier. Whenever Demon Souls first came out, everybody was playing it. That was the kind of whole thing at GameStop, is everybody was just kind of, when the new hotness came out, everybody was checking it out. Everybody that worked at the store was talking about it, and I was the only one that wasn't playing Demon Souls. So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna have to check this game out. So I bring it home, and I played it for probably, optimistically, maybe 2 hours. And I just did not, at that time of my life, I did not have the patience. I kind of was, I was of the mindset of, if this game is so much as difficult enough to where I have to lose any progress, fuck this game. That was kind of my perspective of it. And when Demon Souls first came out, you have to understand, we've never had anything like that before.
Yeah.
And since, it's sort of sparked a new genre.
Yeah, that's actually the main reason I wanted to even bring up Demon Souls in this, is like, a lot of people forget about it. A lot of people don't even realize that Dark Souls wasn't the original Souls game. And
right.
I don't know, you got to show it some love, because without it,
Yeah.
we wouldn't have with all these fucking games now.
But when you got into Dark Souls, just listening to how much you were loving it and how much time you're spending with it, I was like, okay, there's got to be something here. I got to give it another shot. And eventually I did, and I really just sort of fell in love with it. I don't know, it's just Dark Souls is a special series, man. It's unlike anything else. It's there's all kinds of spin-offs now, of course, which we may or may not talk about later.
Yeah.
But it's a special game. It's heavily exploration based. It's, as you said, it has a deep lore. It has complex gameplay mechanics that I think the interesting thing about Dark Souls, in every aspect of Dark Souls, you get what you put into it.
Yeah.
Be it the lore, be it the exploration, be it the understanding of the game's mechanics. The whole get good thing has been lauded about Dark Souls, but it's true. It's very true. It is true, because like it's you do kind of have to get good, and you do kind of have to learn the way. The game does not give a shit if you learn it or not. The game's just there, and if you put in the time and the effort to understand how to play it, you're going to be rewarded for that. The Dark Souls series never takes advantage of the player's time.
Yeah.
Even though Seth, several years ago playing Demon Souls felt like it was. It absolutely was not. You know what I mean? It requires your effort, and I was not willing to give it my effort. and that was my problem. And so when you were playing Dark Souls and I came around to it finally, I fell in love, and I've played them really ever since.
Yep.
But we're kind of gonna go. I think you were wanting to kind of go each game in the series and just sort of discuss them.
Yeah. So I do want to start with Demon Souls, and some of the interesting things that Demon Souls did. As I like to in the show notes here, it's kind of the beta. It's kind of the beta for the Soul series.
Right.
And it does a lot of weird shit that even ends up kind of like coming back to a certain extent in later games.
Yeah,
and,
especially Dark Souls 3.
Yeah, Dark Souls 3 is a throwback to the entire series as a whole, and I love that. So one thing I'm going to bring the wiki up for this is one of the most interesting things about Demon Souls is the character tendencies and world tendencies.
See, this is the thing, is I don't even know what these are. Like, Demon Souls is such a sore spot for me because, like, I recently discovered how badly I want to go back and play Demon Souls. But there's no good way to do that. I know they just broke the PC emulation or whatever. I don't give a fuck about that. I don't want to dig up a PS3 to play it. Sony, if you are for some reason listening to this, please remaster Demon Souls so I can play it. So I can feasibly play it or make it otherwise available on my PS4 because I want to go back and play Demon Souls.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So character tendencies tends to be like for multiplayer. It's kind of like, so when you like to get to white tendency with a character is like you're defeating players that invade you, or defeat unique named NPC Black Phantoms.
Okay.
And then like same thing with like it's the opposite. Like if you want to head to a black world, a black character tendency is you're invading as a Black Phantom and you're killing harmless NPCs.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of like there's actually like when you're like with black world tendency or black character tendency, there's actually an NPC that appears in the story that actually has you kill other NPCs for like a quest line.
Oh, that's interesting.
I think the name of that character is Mistopheles.
Okay.
That's something. Don't quote me on that, but that is something. So with world tendency, this is actually like what really fucks with your game. Is like when you're with black world tendency, your game is going to be harder. Like you're going to be you're legit going to be taking more damage. It's like you're going to find less shit. You're going to be doing less damage. That's kind of like the main bit of it, though.
Every game in the series sort of has its version of that. Yeah.
And it's just like it's interesting. It's a very interesting thing.
That is cool.
One of the other things about Demon Souls for me is. I think it's in the show notes. Is it has a lot going on with like just stats, even upgrading your weapons, like upgrading everything in that game is just like it's almost overwhelming,
right?
With the amount of like materials, like the different materials, and that's something that we'll get to later on is of how that's like evolved over the series.
It's just evolved and become so much simpler.
Yes.
Yeah,
I really love a lot of the stuff that Demon Souls did. And I want to shout out a couple of the bosses that actually kind of made their way to Dark Souls 1 in a way.
Mm-hmm.
So there's I'm off bat. There's the first boss of the game, which is the Phalanx. It's not a boss in Dark Souls 1. I don't know if you actually got this far, but you probably remember the enemy in so in the Painted World in Dark Souls 1. There's like these like spear enemies, like really like conjoined together.
Okay.
That's the Phalanx. Borderline.
Okay.
It just ended up becoming like this weird ass enemy.
Yeah, I've seen the Phalanx fight just watching runs of Demon Souls.
Yeah. And there was a lot of like just mechanic based fights kind of like which kind of like made their way into a couple of later games. Like I think there was
I love me a mechanics based fight.
Like the Tower Knight. The Tower Knight
right.
is you gotta like hit his ankles and shit.
Right.
And there's like a couple of just like really just interesting things about that game. Like there's the Dragon God, which is like you think is going to be such like a hard fucking fight because he's so huge. You're like, oh shit, what's going to go on with this? Oh, never mind. You just gotta. It's like this weird stealth based combat in the fucking game for some reason, and and you have to sit there and like sneak your way to these like these ballistas, and that's it. You get him to drop down, you beat his ass, and boom, you're done.
It's funny because the series has always kind of had those moments like that where and like I'm sure just like anything else, if you really wanted to, you absolutely could do it the hard way.
You know what? I don't know if you could do that with Dragon God though.
Really?
I don't think you can. I think you legitimately have to
do that?
do the ballista bullshit. Yeah.
Is it involved in like a cutscene or something?
I think when you activate the ballista, I think it does a cutscene.
That's probably why they
I
can't get around that.
Yeah, I think that's pretty scripted.
That's why, yeah.
There's just a lot of things, like almost like skins of these bosses that kind of made their way to Dark Souls 1. You have the Man-Eaters, which are kind of like the Belfry Gargoyles from Dark Souls 1. And then there is... I know there's a couple other ones. Oh, Fool's Idol. Fool's Idol is... that is interesting, because I think that's actually better than the boss that it kind of took, like, in Dark Souls 1. The Fool's Idol is basically Pinwheel.
Oh, okay.
And I think that's technically a better boss.
Pinwheel's a better boss, or the Fool's Idol is? Okay.
The Fool's Idol is technically a better boss in my eyes. Still, it's like still a really shit boss because it's easy, but I think it's a better designed boss in a weird way. And I do gotta shout this out because I'm gonna probably talk about it later. The Old Monk.
I don't know if I've actually seen the fight.
It's again, you've done the new version, Half-Light, which is
okay.
Yeah. The Spears of the Church boss fight.
Right.
Really, I absolutely love the fact that they did that.
They brought
I know
that
a lot
back.
of people actually shit on that fight because it's a bunch of bullshit if you're not used to PvP.
I thought it was cool, even like not knowing that it was a callback to Demon Souls. I thought it was just a neat idea.
Yeah, I absolutely loved it because I beat the shit
To
out
explain
of it.
sort of what it is, the boss fight is a character, like a non-player character that is an enemy in PvP.
Yeah.
So you're actually fighting against somebody online as its own boss fight.
Mm-hmm. If you're actually playing the game offline, you will have a just standard version of the character. Like in Dark Souls 3, it would be like Half-Light, the Spear of the Church. And with Demon Souls, it's actually like he's called the Old Monk, and it's just like I think he has like claws. He does some pyromancy or some shit. But this is actually the beginning of the Xanthus Crown. Do you know of the Xanthus Crown?
I don't.
Oh, God, really? It's the fucking
I don't
big
think
ass
so.
stupid yellow like tower of cloth.
Tower of Cloth.
You've never seen that helmet?
No.
Oh, you need to do some homework.
Oh. Yes.
Okay.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, okay.
That was actually the beginning of it.
Okay. Yeah, I had no idea what the fuck you were talking about. Tower of Cloth. I was like, what?
No,
you're talking about that stupid looking thing where you look like fucking Beaker from Muppets. Like it's like this big tall thing on your head. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
It's called the Xanthus Crown. No.
Okay.
Yeah, and that ends up being in like every game. That's one thing I do love about the Soul series in general is like the throwbacks.
Right.
They never forget where they came from, and I love that.
Yeah, they're all gonna be a Moonlight Greatsword.
Oh, see, the Moonlight Greatsword, that's just a staple at this point. That's coming straight back from like Kingsfield. So
yeah, which is cool.
Yeah.
Well, I was just gonna say the only thing that I see here that we'll talk about this a little more in detail as we move on to talk about Dark Souls from Demon Souls, but Demon Souls is a little bit different than the other games in this series in that it does have like a hub with disconnected levels. I guess Bloodborne is sort of like that.
Yes and no.
But not really.
Bloodborne is like that. Technically, Dark Souls 3 is like that as well.
Yeah, I mean, well, Bloodborne is more of a mix of both.
Yeah.
I guess, because Bloodborne does have kind of a hub with the headstones where you can teleport and stuff like that. And you can teleport between bonfires in Dark Souls 3, but it's still connected in a way.
Yeah.
The whole world is. Anyway, we'll talk about that a little bit more later.
No, I think before we move on to like actually Dark Souls 1, I kind of want to shout out just the pure, I'm going to call it memery of the game.
You're referring to the great blacksmith Ed? Bring me a demon soul.
Red hot demon soul.
Ah, yes. A red hot demon soul.
And you do the laugh way better than me. It's just like the fat official.
The fat official. Fucking fat ass running around with he's using like a pole arm, doesn't he?
It's like a halberd or some shit. It's right. Fucking fantastic. Like just the pure like stupidity in that game. when it comes to
I
shit
love,
like
that was like I was watching a streamer that we both like, Lobos. I was watching him play Demon Souls one day. I was like, why have I never played Demon Souls? This is so good. This is so dumb. This is so up my alley.
Yep.
Please, again, Sony, remaster Demon Souls. I want to play it.
That's kind of where I'm at. Like I've played Demon Souls, but it's just like I want to play it again. But it's like, I'm not gonna bring out my PS3, and I know that you can play Demon Souls via emulator now.
Yeah,
I'm not doing that. Fuck off.
I'm not going through all the effort to do that shit.
So yeah, let's kind of move on to Dark Souls 1, and I kind of want to like. I think you know about this. Is with Dark Souls 1, I actually hated it when I first played it.
Oh, I didn't even know that you had first played it, and
yeah.
I thought your first experience was your
my first
good one.
My first experience with the series was like I didn't even give it like fucking that much time, honestly. Like it was because our mutual friend Tyler like loved the shit out of the series, like loved the game to death, and I'm like, all right, cool, I'll check it out. Absolutely hated it.
What was your problem with it when you first played it?
Same problem you had with Demon Souls.
Right. So it was a similar experience. I think there's something about the series, man. Like, you have to acclimate yourself to it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can't just get straight into it and expect to immediately love it.
And again,
you know?
I think like my mindset at the time was very different to when I actually fell in love with the game. Is like I think I don't know, I had something going on in my life at the time. But coming back to it the second time, that's when I fell in love with it. And, I kept on going, and just I fell in love with that fucking game, dude. The amount of hours that I've put into all these games, it's disgusting.
The first Dark Souls really is a special game. It's one of the best games ever made.
Mm-hmm.
It really is a great game. I love, and I was speaking about the interconnected world. The first Dark Souls does that so well.
Oh, dude.
And actually, when I think about from a design perspective, the thing that I love the most about the first Dark Souls is, and I mentioned this to you, I love the way that game never gives the player a map. Mm-hmm. I know you got a poster of the fucking world on your wall.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now, and I fucking love it.
I've debated on getting it my damn self. The game's level design is so good. It's all interconnected. It's very difficult for a third-person action game, or a third-person RPG, rather, to have a vast world like Dark Souls has and never give the player a map. And it's because not only are the areas unique and memorable and kind of based and peppered by these bosses that are memorable, and the way that the game's level design gates you from one area to the next without ever forcing the player to really backtrack. It's there if you want to do it, just like everything. It's all based on player choice. If you want to do that, you can. But the game feeds you in a pretty beautiful and unique way through its world that I really respect, just from a design perspective. It is not easy to pull that off, and Dark Souls just effortlessly does it.
Yes, absolutely.
Anyway.
Now, let's get into Dark Souls 1. How far did you actually get into the game, like, personally?
So, what happened with Dark Souls 1, I loved it. And I actually I want to pick it up on PC and play it again.
Oh, yeah. It'd be the easy way to do it.
Yeah, because, so what ended up happening, as I said, I played it because Todd sang its praises. I fell in love with it. And I was loving it. I had a great time. I got all the way up to the Tomb of the Giants. And is that what it is? The all dark.
Yeah, it's Tomb of the Giants. Lovely place.
Yeah, so I got all the way there. And something else came out that took me away from, like, some new release came out. I don't remember what it was.
You know what? Before you continue, I have to tell a funny story about Tomb of the Giants.
Okay.
I got invaded in there one time, and I'm gonna be real. You invade me anywhere else, I'll fight you honorably. I don't give a shit. But you invade me there, I'm sorry. You're getting punished.
I could only imagine.
You're getting punished. Yeah. I don't give a shit because it's too much bullshit to fight somebody in that fucking level. So what I did, I had you've probably heard, of this pyromancy. It's Black Flame.
Yeah.
Black Flame used to be way better in Dark Souls 1 than it is in Dark Souls 3.
The pyromancy's fucking stupid in Dark Souls 1.
Black Flame is delicious. This man came up to me. I went, bah, bah, bah. I'm like, couldn't do shit. I'm like, I'm sorry, bro. I'm sorry. It had to happen.
Yeah, I got to Tomb of the Giants, dude, and I like I said, something else came out. I wasn't like afraid of it at all. I was like, okay, no, I'm liking this game enough. I'm gonna come back to it. Something else came out and sort of drew my attention away. I don't know what it was. I can't remember. But long story short, I never went back to it. I'm debating on just picking up the Prepare to Die edition or whatever it is on PC and just playing through it again that way.
I own
and
it on PC, dude. We can actually play through it together.
Yeah, I want to do that because I do love that game, and I was having a great time with it. And I feel pretty familiar with the game because I've seen it so much.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen so many runs, and I feel like I know that game like the back of my hand, even though I only got like probably halfway through it. So,
all right,
that's my experience at Dark Souls 1.
That's absolutely perfect. So, one thing I do want to bring up is what are the most memorable bosses for you, at least? Like for me, like the most like memorable is obviously going to be like Ornstein and Smough, James and the Giant Peach, Team Rocket and all that shit.
Biggie Smalls.
Yeah, Biggie Smalls is a good one.
Oppression and Suffering.
Oppression and Suffering is the go-to. Again, James and the Giant Peach is my personal favorite. I think like, a lot of people have said this, and I do agree with it. I think that is the best that the Soul series has ever handled a 2v1 fight.
It is, yeah.
Like the closest...
difficult. I think everybody hits that wall with that.
Oh, yeah, of course. I think the only fight that got as close to it, feeling-wise, was Frida. But Frida and Ariando. Like, that's probably... Dark Souls 3 DLC. Yeah. I think that's the closest they've ever gotten to, like, bringing that feeling back. And even then, I'm just like...
Yeah.
At the time of Dark Souls 3, I'm just like, really, though?
What's great about Ornstein and Smough is there's no, like... That is such a no-frills fight. Like, it is you got, like, Ornstein and Smough, fucking Smough, big fat-ass dude with a hammer... And Ornstein, kind of Dragon Lancer kind of person that's just running around and fucking you up with lightning and shit.
Yep.
So, and the only real gimmick to the fight, I mean, other than you're fighting two of them at first, is that when you kill one, the other gains the other one's abilities, sort of.
Yeah.
Other than that, though, the actual, like, the area that you're fighting, there are some pillars that can be knocked down, I guess. But it's just you three in a small room.
Yep, that's basically it. And it's arguably one of the hardest fights in the game.
It is, and I mean, like I said, that's the wall that everybody I think hits when they're first playing Dark Souls 1. Like, it definitely was for me. During my time, I only really hit two walls, and that was one of them. I beat my head against that fight for a while, and it's a very just... The game knows what it has, because once you overcome, not only is it awesome, but... You know that room so intimately that when you revisit it later, you instantly are like, oh shit, this is where I was raped.
Yep.
So, yeah.
There's like so many other like bosses that I want to give a little credit to. Like, is the fight hard? No, but I honestly probably one of the coolest opening like cutscenes in the series is Gaping Dragon.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
I wanted to shout out real quick. I don't know why this... Well, I do know why, but the other boss that gave me trouble in this game, the only other wall that I hit, was fucking Quelaag.
And
I could beat her ass now, I'm sure.
Honestly, it's like, I don't see why that's a reasonable wall for people, I think. Like, it's... Because I think you...
It was stupid.
I think you ended up fucking fighting her with, like, a broken weapon.
I did. I beat her with a fucking broken weapon because my only other option was to, like, backtrack...
Yeah.
A long way, so I ended up having to beat her with a broken weapon that did like fucking like 9 damage every time I hit her. It was bad. It was terrible. And then like Blighttown in general is not good.
Blighttown is absolutely love and beautiful. There's just so many bosses that I can shout out with this, and it's just I do love the
shout out that butterfly.
Oh, Moonlight Butterfly. Oh yes. Moonlight Butterfly. You know what's funny is I've died like a couple times with that fucking boss.
I died a couple times to it too, even though it's easy as shit.
Yeah. Just dodge. Oh, you land on me, beat your ass real quick. Are we good?
It's dodge for days. He gets, he lands, gets close to that little bridge or whatever. You just beat his ass. That's all it is.
There's a level of bullshit with a couple of these fights, and then I do want to shout out, fuck you, Capra Demon. I'm gonna be real. That Capra Demon, they knew what they were doing. Because
They always know.
Because you jump into this time, and this is the smallest boss arena in the in any of these games. Any of these fucking games. He doesn't have a lot of health. I don't give a shit about that. It's just the fact is you got him, and he's kind of quick, and you got two little dogs. And if anybody knows, dogs are the worst enemies in the Souls series.
Oh, in any of the games, yeah.
Shit, it gets even worse at Dark Souls 3. Them motherfuckers teleport.
Yeah. Shit's bullshit.
I love watching them teleport in Dark Souls 3. It's like, really though? Why? So, Capra Demon is such a like half the time he's like, as soon as you walk through that fucking fog wall, it's boom, getting pancaked, you're dead.
I love the not even the bosses of Dark Souls 1, like the moments that everybody kind of knows, like the archers, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Those kind of memorable, like, oh shit, all right, we're getting up to the archers, like you kind of know, like the game has such memorable areas and sections and ways that it trolls you that you sort of, it makes it memorable. It makes the experience memorable for sure.
Yeah, there's so many memorable bosses. I can legitimately talk about every single one of these, but like we got a little bit of a time constraint, so I kind of want to speed things along a little bit. So, shout out to Artorias, my boy, my favorite character of the entire series.
Of course.
Got to shout him out. Arguably, he's considered one of the... It's funny. He was, back in the day, arguably one of the hardest fights. Going back from, like, these, like, games where the animations are so much more fluid, where, like, everything is just actually so much faster. Just watching how slow Artorias is now, it's like, what the fuck?
Artorias is just such a cool character, besides.
Again, he shows, like... a lot of, like, again, you're going to find out more about this pretty soon. Is how much Berserk has influenced these games.
Oh, yeah. I've actually seen a screen grab of a character in Berserk or whatever that literally looks exactly like Artorias.
Oh, that's my boy Guts.
He just literally looks like Artorias. I was like, you could have shown me that and said it was a Dark Souls manga. And I would have been like, okay.
That's my boy Guts in the Berserker armor. It's good shit, dude. Now,
nice.
Let's kind of move on to Dark Souls 2. Oh, you know what? Before that, I do want to shout out all-time favorite soundtrack from Dark Souls 1. Gwyn's theme, best shit.
That shit is love. And when they bring it back in Dark Souls 3,
I'm only gonna lie, I had a little tear in my eye. That shit was delicious. So
I also got a shout out real quick before we move on. Mimics.
Oh yes,
mimics in Dark Souls.
Fucking mimics, like my favorite mimics in any game.
I don't know why. The design of the mimics in Dark Souls has just resonated with me so much.
They're just fucking disturbing, dude. Like they have like.
It's such a cool idea. Like the idea of a mimic. I think Zelda might have been the first one to introduce mimics, if not earlier. Zelda might have been the first one to introduce it in like a big bad way. It might have been like an older, kind of adventure game before then. But the idea of like, you're so used to just mindlessly opening treasure chests. And now you have to think about it a little bit more because some of them want to fucking kill you. And the way Dark Souls handles it, I love it. I love just the imagery of just seeing the mimic rise up into the ground and like his long legs underneath him and his mouth opening up and his fucking tongue. It's
disturbing.
Such a cool design.
It's fucking disturbing. I actually have a shirt. I don't know if you have it.
We both do. Yeah.
Oh yes, the Anatomy of a Mimic. I love that shirt, dude.
It's such a good shirt by Meat Bun. It's one of my favorite shirts. I wear it like on a weekly basis.
But yeah, fucking
and I actually got complimented in all places when I was in New Orleans. I was in Emerald's restaurant, and it was like this fancy, like 5-star restaurant. And one of the waiters comes up and he goes, "I'm so sorry to bother you, sir. Is that a mimic from Dark Souls?"
I love it, dude. Absolutely love it. So
anyway,
I want to move on to this next talking point: is Dark Souls 2 and / Dark Souls 2 Skate 4 Edition.
Wait, okay. So you're even gonna do it in your own topic?
Yes. This is a single topic show. I have to do it.
You have to put it in somewhere.
I hate that I
was wondering about that.
I hate that I had to do it in my topic, but it's gonna get it. So not Skate 4 Edition, but the Scholar of the First Shit Edition. Now, I absolutely Dark Souls 2 is, in my opinion, the weakest of the Souls games, and I know a lot of people that play Dark Souls 2 first. They absolutely love it, and they actually don't like Dark Souls 1 as much or Dark Souls 3 as much. I respect that. That was your first, that was your first taste of Souls. You fell in love with it. You fell in love with that level of shit.
There are some people. There are some people whose opinion is that Dark Souls 2 is like either their favorite or one of their favorites.
Yeah, I'm not one of them. Like, I like aspects of Dark Souls 2, like, but there's just so many things that I don't like. Like soul memory. Soul memory is fucking stupid.
What's that?
Soul memory is basically like, this is bad for PvPers especially. Because, PvPers have, like, this meta, like, they try to stay at, like, 120 or 125 or some shit.
Right,
because that's, like, a proper build, And soul memory, what that does is, soul memory is the amount of souls that you have continuously collected, even when you're not leveling up. So, if you have the same soul memory of somebody that is, like, 125, you can be fighting somebody that's, like, fucking 300.
Oh, Jesus.
It's not fun for anybody. And that's why...
And that's so weird, because it sounds like one of the few saving graces about Dark Souls 2 is its PvP.
But that's actually... The funny thing is that's because basically a lot of people said, fuck your builds.
Right.
Everybody just leveled up to whatever level they wanted.
So everybody just said whatever.
Yeah, and it just got to the point where everybody can just do whatever. And there was a lot of variety with the PvP in Dark Souls 2. Even, like, I'm not a PvPer, but I actually fucked with the PvP in Dark Souls 2 heavily for me. Like, a little... I actually used to invade and shit. It was actually a lot of fun. And actually, I was able to invade in the way that I like to invade. There was, I didn't even bring this up with the Dark Souls 1 topic, but the covenant system.
Right.
There is a covenant that I absolutely love. In Dark Souls 1, I fucked with, it was Blades of the Dark Moon.
Okay.
That was kind of like you invaded the guilty. Like, you were like being the good guy, like, invading people that are assholes. And they did the same thing with Dark Souls 2. It was called the Blue Sentinels, and that's basically the only covenant that I really ever fucked with. That was whatever. It was like, again, like the PvP is arguably the best part of Dark Souls 2, because it's just the amount of variety in builds and like the amount of weapons and all that.
Right.
Again, I actually fucked with like fist weapons in that game. Well, not originally. I was actually unarmed. I actually used to run around with my bare hands beating the shit out of people, because there was
Isn't there also... I wanted to ask you about this, because when we were doing the show notes, you made sure that I included something about the adaptability stat. What is that?
So adaptability is a stat that messes with your agility, and agility in the game is what actually is... It's your iframes. Now...
Oh, okay.
Now what you...
So it actually fucks with your iframes?
Yes. So you want to get
that.
it. So yeah, no, it's garbage. That's actually, if you ever... When you were actually playing with me in the Scholar of the First Shit Edition, you realize, like, you thought you dodged, but you still got hit?
Yeah, I hated that.
Yeah.
So I picked up Scholar for PS4 because I was like, oh, Dark Souls, I just got off of Dark Souls 3 and I love Dark Souls 1. Let's try out Dark Souls 2.
Before he continues, I told him, I'm like, dude, you ain't gonna like it. I'm gonna be fucking real with you.
Yeah, I did not at all. I hated it basically immediately. I think I put like an hour optimistically into it and I was like, nope, I'm good.
Like, I can shit on this game like all day, but I will respect it for what it is. It brought more people to love the Soul series, and they continued on and played Bloodborne, played Dark Souls 3 and all that. And I have to respect it for that. And there's actually a couple of like cool moments in the game, There's like a couple of cool bosses. Like, I'm going to shout out, like, one of the... Honestly, it's a bullshit fight, but it's actually interesting, is the Lost Sinner.
Okay.
The Lost Sinner is an interesting fight, because there is, like, 2 torches that you can actually light to make the boss easier.
Okay.
Because if you this is one of the fights, you can't fight him locked on.
You literally can't lock onto him?
Because it's so dark that it, like, acts like it's out of your range. Like, you can only lock on when she's right in front of you.
Okay.
And it's a little interesting. It's like, because she'll jump in the air and, like, you don't know where the fuck she's at.
That's interesting.
There's some interesting fights in the game. And, like, they get a lot of, like, Dark Souls 2 gets a little more love in the DLC of Dark Souls 3, and I respect that.
It's nice that Dark Souls 3 felt, that game, and we'll get into it more later, but that game really does cater to fans of any game in the series.
For me personally, though, it's like Dark Souls 2 is the most forgettable of the series, just for me alone. Like, I definitely had to bring up the wiki for a lot of these bosses. There's some that I remember. Of course, I remember the great ones, so that's one thing. They kind of, like, carried on the same thing with Dark Souls 1 and Dark Souls 2, is, like, there's the 4 great bosses. They kind of carry that on with every game,
Right.
So, you have the Rotten, which is basically Nito.
Okay.
And you actually, that's another throwback, is when a New Game Plus, this is actually one thing that I respect about Dark Souls 2, is actually New Game Pluses changed the game a little bit.
Oh, okay.
So, like,
interesting.
changed the way some of these, like, Flexile Sentry boss fight, there would actually be two enemies, I forget what they were called, but it would make the game a little harder. I respect that. I do respect some of the changes that will happen with New Game Plus, but one of the other changes, and this is actually how you got the Moonlight Greatsword in this game, is the four great ones would actually drop a second soul. And like the Duke's Dear Freya, which is the spider boss, would actually drop an old Pale Drake soul, being Seath the Scaleless. And that's actually how you ended up getting Moonlight Greatsword.
Nice.
And there's like the Rotten would drop what the fuck was the soul called? I don't know, it doesn't matter. But he dropped basically Nito's soul, and I'm gonna be real, he gives you my favorite weapon in that game is the Undead Crypt Black Sword or some shit. Oh, that thing was a monster. It's just, well, again, the game itself does a lot of cool things. It's just, I'm gonna call it, it's sluggish souls. It's very sluggish. Like, you feel like when you're moving around in that game, it's like you feel like you're like walking through mud. You know, it's like it's a very slow game, and it's just. Is there a lot of bosses? Is there a lot of content? Yes, but you know, quality over quantity, and a lot of these bosses are like fucking forgettable. Like, honestly, like I definitely did the wiki up. I don't remember half these fucking bosses. Like,
that's sad. It is the first. I have this in the show notes too, and it's the first and only game in this whole Soulsborne series without the direction of series creator Miyazaki. So, and it seems like it shows.
You know, it definitely shows. Like, I'll respect so much of the game. One thing I will shout out: the fucking DLCs were actually fucking good in my eyes. They're actually pretty fun.
That's good.
Arguably one of the hardest fights in the game for me, and this is the entire Soul series, is fucking the Fume Knight. Fuck the Fume Knight.
I think I've actually heard you talk about it. That's how bullshit that is.
It's... I transcended anger fighting him. Because, again, it's the same thing with the, like I told you, with the adaptability. It's just like, the dodging in that game is just so weird. The hitboxes are like, you know how, like, the other later games got known for, like, their hitbox porn? Complete utter opposite of Dark Souls 2. Dark Souls 2 hitboxes were like, we called them shit boxes.
Oh lord.
And there's a lot of
I don't regret not playing that game.
Oh dude, overall it is my weakest game, but I still give it the respect that it deserves because it did bring more people, you know, to the Soul series, you know.
Right.
That's and the music was garbage. Like,
that's sad.
I mean, there's probably a couple ones I legit like. That's what I'm saying. It's so forgettable for me. It's like I don't remember much of the music of that game. With that, I think we're gonna go to
moving right along in chronological order, Todd. But Todd, that leads us into the granddaddy. Your favorite game of all time.
Of course, man. Like, technically, I shouldn't bring this up because it's not a quote unquote Souls game. Fuck you.
It is.
It fucking is. So
Miyazaki directed it. He actually was working on this like after Dark Souls 1.
As early as
you're
Dark
actually
Souls
telling me.
Yeah,
we're talking about Bloodborne.
Yeah, talking about Bloodborne. If you didn't hear, like, favorite game, my favorite game of all fucking time. I love this game. Like, I actually didn't realize I deleted it off my system, and I'm like, what the fuck am I doing with my life? I re-downloaded it. I'm like, I'm about to. I think I kind of want to do a fresh playthrough, but here we are. What Seth was getting at there is it was kind of hinted at in the DLC of Dark Souls 1 about Bloodborne. There is a character called Marvelous Chester who looks very heavily like a hunter in Bloodborne.
Right.
And it's just like, you know, he was pulled back by Manus as well, and it's just like kind of like, you know, throwing a little hints, you know. And
right. You can kind of see the seeds being planted.
Yes. And I absolutely love everything about Bloodborne. Bloodborne, in my eyes, is like the perfect game for me. And I think a lot of like people like that are into the Souls series kind of feel the same way about it. Like, if you ask them what their favorite Souls game is, they'll be like, if you're not going to count, it's like Bloodborne, but if you're not going to count Bloodborne as a Souls game, they'll probably say like Dark Souls 1.
Right.
And that's basically what I would say my damn self. But
yeah, I'm sort of inclined to agree. Yeah,
because there's just so many things that I love about the game. Bloodborne has the slight change to mechanics that are perfect for this game. There is like
they're slight, but they're significant.
Yeah, exactly. There is, the fact that the whole game, like, it switches from the whole defensive sort of play style from Dark Souls 2 and Dark Souls 1.
And now it's a very offensive play
very
style.
aggressive. Like, you have no guns. It's just, you're in the shit now. You got, like...
You mean you have no shields?
Yeah, no shields. Yeah.
What? You said guns.
Oh, sorry. Did I? Oh, Lord.
You definitely have guns.
Oh, my bad. Sorry. You have guns now, but no shields. So then there's also the rally system. That actually plays on the fact that they want you to be aggressive. You have... So if you get hit, you have probably about like a second to start damaging an enemy or the boss, and you'll get that health back.
Right.
And that is such a big part of that game.
Such a significant change to the gameplay. It really encourages the player to just go all in and just kind of take that chance, just kind of grit your teeth and power through it and fight through it and get some health back. Because there are times when that fucking rally system like has saved my ass.
Oh, dude, it's absolutely it's such an important part of that game, and it's just I love the switch from like this. Like that's Dark Souls 1 was Miyazaki, and Dark Souls 2, Dark Souls 3 as well is Miyazaki's take on this like Western fantasy, like the dragons, the angels, all that fantasy shit. Now, This was his take on like this Lovecraftian gothic just horror, and it's just so fucking good.
I love the style of Bloodborne. I was talking to somebody actually just last night about Bloodborne and how it is sort of I wish in another world we would have Castlevania game, like modern Castlevania games like this, because I feel like Bloodborne is the Castlevania game we never got.
I feel you on that. I definitely do.
Because it has that sort of dark gothic horror kind of vibe to it, and it mixes. The further you go into the game, it gets even weirder.
That's the thing. That's what I love. Like when you first start playing, you think you're just killing werewolves and shit.
Right.
You're just like, all right,
and
cool.
it's not that.
Gets even weirder.
That's not what that game's about.
God no. Gets really fucking weird. Gets freaky weird.
Yeah, it's weird and like you said, Lovecraftian. It's such a cool style. So weird.
Yes,
and so
and then
interesting.
there's me and you had probably the best experience of life. I played the entire game with you.
Yeah, we did the whole thing in co-op. From start to finish, it was awesome.
I mean, this is after I've put hours into it, but still.
yeah, of course, yeah. But when I got into it with you, we did do the whole thing, like literally from start to platinum.
Yep. Yeah, I basically got I got Seth here as platinum, and it was a lot of fun. Like we had a lot of fun, like messing around with like every aspect of the game, and just experiencing the DLC together. And the Chalice Dungeons.
Yeah.
The that's my little segue there. Chalice Dungeons.
Beautiful.
So, the thing with the Chalice Dungeons, I know a lot of people are about them. I love them. I absolutely love them. Like, it's just a lot. It kind of like brings the replayability of Bloodborne to like a new high. Because you can just always do the Chalice Dungeons and always kill some shit. And what the Chalice Dungeons are, they are like randomly generated dungeons, basically. Like, I don't give a shit about, like, there's, like, the Chalice Dungeon loot of, like, the tomb mold, I don't know, it's a lot of shit. But it's just, like, there's some really interesting lore with that as well, if you care enough.
Right. Again, it's the same thing as Dark Souls 1. If you care to dig, it's there.
Like, the main story of Bloodborne is a little more in your face.
It is,
but the overall
it definitely
lore of it is still hidden in plain sight. And I absolutely love it. Like, you have to actually go through the Chalice Dungeons and to fight, to even get the platinum, because you need to face Yharnam.
Right.
And really good fight, actually, if you don't know the mechanic. I shit on her because I knew the mechanic.
Right. Really, I love that. I love Bloodborne so much.
I can continue talking about, like so many aspects of this game.
We gotta shout out some bosses.
Oh, we're about to. Well, we're about to, sir. Oh. So, a lot of people's first boss in that game is Quelaag Beast. But he's completely optional. You don't even have to fight him.
Right, yeah. Quelaag Beast was not my first boss fight.
You actually fought Papa G first.
Papa G was my first, yeah.
G, yes.
Papa G was my first. The first time I fought him, he beat my ass.
Oh, dude, of course. Like, okay. So, Quelaag Beast, he is such. He's not like he is a good boss for what it's worth.
He's definitely sort of the Taurus demon of this game.
That's a good way of putting it.
He's just kind of the tutorial, like, all right, here's a boss to kind of ease you into it a little bit.
He's like borderline. He's got some quickness to him, but he's more or less just kind of slow and like shut up.
Well, the whole thing about the cleric beast teaches you. It's really interesting from a design perspective. The cleric beast is actually a really smartly designed boss fight because it teaches you to play in a way that you aren't used to playing. Just if you had gotten up to that point playing Bloodborne non-aggressively, thinking it was like Dark Souls, then you have to play aggressively with Cleric Beast because Cleric Beast is A, he's relatively fast, but B, the whole deal is he's got one like normal sized arm and one like huge arm. Yeah. So just visually, just from looking at him, you already know to go for the normal-sized arm side, kind of his left side or whatever, because you know that he's not going to be able to hit you as effectively, and that encourages the player to, again, play more aggressively. So the whole purpose of Cleric Beast even existing is to basically teach you how to play Bloodborne. Mm-hmm. So he really is sort of the tutorial boss, and I almost wish that he was mandatory for that reason.
I feel you on that, but it's like, then you look at just Papa G, and it's just like, if you don't know the mechanics now, you better learn.
Right, yeah. Now, Papa G will whoop your ass, man.
Yeah, that's when, like, you see how aggressive you need to be with Bloodborne. Is because Papa G is as aggressive as you need to be.
He is still, even though he's a very simple boss fight, he still is one of my favorites.
Oh, dude, I absolutely love Papa G. Just from a lore perspective, like, he is something special to me. And
one thing that I thought was cool, and I know you know this, but I remember when that game first came out and people were just still kind of discovering that game, like it wasn't, not every little thing was known about it. There's
you bring up the music box.
Yeah, there's a whole little like sub quest almost within the game that you don't even have to do at all, and you get a little music box from it. Turns out it was his daughter's music box. And playing it in the boss fight actually staggers him a little bit.
Up until you get to his full, like his phase 3 full beast form, it'll stun him.
I just thought that was a really neat little thing. I was like, wow, what a cool.
That's like one thing we didn't even talk about throughout this entire fucking game is there's so much, like, all these subquests with like the NPCs, like Solaire and Dark Souls 1 and all that. There's so much shit to cover with that. Like, honestly, this could be like God knows how long of a show.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we could spend. It was just like my Zelda topic last week. We could spend way longer.
Oh, way longer. That's why I'm like, we gotta kind of speed it along a little bit. So
yeah. What are some of the other bosses in Bloodborne we want to shout out?
All-time favorite boss of like any of the games, Ludwig. And the thing with Ludwig, that's more or less like my favorite soundtrack as well. But it's, when I say that, it's more of like all together. It's like the perfect experience.
Yeah, we should say that Ludwig is part of the Old Hunters DLC.
Yeah, he's like the first DLC boss, and he's definitely the wall.
Oh yeah, yeah.
If you can't get past Ludwig, you're not getting past that DLC.
No.
And Ludwig is, I could talk about Ludwig alone for probably like 20 minutes.
Yeah, he's a great boss.
I kind of want to give him a little shout out to, like, it's just such a fucking good experience to, like, because he has two phases, you know. He's like, you've heard of Ludwig the entire time you've been playing Bloodborne.
Ludwig's Holy Blade and shit.
Yeah, he's basically the Artorias of Bloodborne.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I guess so,
one
yeah.
of the main reasons I actually love him is Artorias is like my favorite character in the Souls series. And just like seeing him in the flesh in the game was incredible. But he's like this, his first phase is called Ludwig the Accursed Beast. And he's just a wild fucking animal.
Yeah.
You get him to like half health, and it's without a doubt one of my favorite moments in any game.
That cutscene that shall never be skipped.
It's never skipped when I do it.
Mm-hmm.
He rises up, pulls out the Holy Moonlight Sword, the Moonlight Blade of the Bloodborne, and it's not arguably, it is, in my opinion, the best version of the Moonlight Blade. Just him standing up, like almost human-like.
Right.
I won't lie, I died instantly. I didn't expect it. You have this orchestra just fucking going nuts.
Oh yeah, it's going nuts shit. It's already good. Like from the second you start that fight, from the second you start it, it's just you're hit from just this fucking the kind of uniqueness of Ludwig's design and the way he's moving and the way that the fight is going and the music is already so good. And then yeah, like you said, once you hit that second phase, man, just the fucking wall of sound with the orchestra is like, holy shit, what's happening?
Because in that second phase, you're not fighting the beast anymore. You're fighting Ludwig the Holy Blade, and it's so fucking good, dude.
Yeah, it's an excellent fight.
Oh,
it's definitely up there for me too. It's really good.
It's honestly one of my favorite video game experiences of like all time, and there's just so many good bosses in Bloodborne. You have, I actually got to shout out Dark Beast Parl because I like him for
Parl.
Parl. Yeah, the way he just, he's kind of like mechanics based, and I actually really enjoy that. Is because you kind of like attack his limbs and fuck him up,
Yeah.
And that's kind of with every boss, but I think Parl is like the perfect example of the whole like breaking the limbs.
Yeah.
I hate this fight, especially on New Game Plus.
I already know. I think I already know what you're gonna say.
I have to shout out Mikolash because
I love Mikolash.
He's a beautiful bastard.
I love. I feel like every time you're fighting Mikolash, especially when because you play, as we discussed on episode 3, you play into like New Game plus. And,
yeah, exactly. Max scaling.
And like max scaling Mikolash is garbage, but
oh, dude, he one-shots you with anything. Like, you have to be so aggressive with him that, like, the moment he does, like, a call from beyond or he accidentally hits you with the auger of, it's bad. It's all bad. You're going to get one shot.
No, I love it, though. For just New Game or New Game Plus or whatever, I really like that fight.
Oh, dude, for a while, I had my text notification as this,
Not only is he just like a funny, stupid character in the same vein as like the dumb Demon Souls character we were talking about earlier. He's like kind of he's kind of the almost comic relief in so far as it would be in Bloodborne. But I just think he's a really interesting like not mechanic. I like having to chase him. I think that's cool, although it can be a little bit annoying. From a lore perspective, I just like his whole area and his whole fight. I just think it's really interesting.
Yeah, the Nightmare of Mensis is fantastic. And then you have, I'm gonna shout it out because it's probably my favorite base game fight. It's not hard. It's not a hard fight, but I just love the design. Is a Vicaramilia.
Yeah. I actually really like her as well for the same reason you just mentioned. Her design is really cool.
Pure design, I absolutely love her. I love the way she looks.
I actually really want to pick up the Bloodborne art book.
Oh, dude, I would love to do
I
that.
have like a kind of a growing art book collection. Like I have my big Zelda Art and Artifacts hardcover. I have my Art of Splatoon. And I've just kind of I've really enjoyed art books lately. I'm probably going to be picking up the Steven Universe art book pretty soon. I kind of have like a growing collection of art books, and I definitely want to get the Dark Souls and Bloodborne art books.
And then I think I'm going to there's a couple more bosses I want to call out. I'm going to call out Martyr Ligarius because that is a fantastic area and a fantastic fight.
Yeah, it is.
Because, what is it, Canehurst Castle is
Canehurst is probably the best location in the whole game.
Yeah, it's honestly, like, it's so out of place in that game, almost.
You feel like a fucking, Bloodborne is such a unique, as we discussed earlier, such a unique setting, and such a unique kind of take on all of this. It's funny to go to a place like Canehurst, and you almost feel for the first time like a stranger in a strange land. Yeah,
it's honestly the way they handle Canehurst Castle is just so incredible, and it's like such a almost powerful experiences, like when the gates are opening up, you're just like, what the fuck is this shit?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so good. And then I'm gonna definitely have to shout out Bloodstarved Beast just off the bat because
I love Bloodstarved.
That was the first fight I had issues with.
Yeah, that was probably my first wall too. Yeah. I mean, Papa G maybe a little bit, but I wouldn't go as far as to call him a wall. Bloodstarved was definitely a wall for me.
And I haven't even touched on like the Great One fights.
Yeah.
The Great Ones basically, how there's always like the great bosses in like the Soul series. It's like you got like Seath, you got the Four Kings. This is the Great Ones are basically that. In Bloodborne, you have some of them are optional, and there's some that you actually do have to fight. There's Rom that you have to fight. There's Murgo's Wet Nurse. there's a spoilers. You know, the game's been out for a while, but there's a secret and final boss called the Moon Presence, and they're all right. Like, I think out of those 3 that I just mentioned,
Rom,
I think,
probably my favorite.
you like Rom?
Yeah, out of all
I
those
like
3.
I like Rom just for the area, like that. Was a Moonside Lake.
Yeah,
That shit is absolutely incredible.
it's
I love
cool
the way
how
that
you have
looks.
to like jump into it and stuff.
Yeah,
It's pretty legit. Rom as a fight, like the mechanics are a little bit stupid. Rom's just a pretty cool visual, and I like just sort of the infinite spiders and shit.
yeah.
You
It's honestly like it's an interesting fight because it's like one of the few fights that really rallies behind the whole like it has mobs up the ass, and then there's like amygdala, whatever you want to call it. I know you had issues with it in the defiled chalice.
Yeah,
But I remember
I think we had to cheese it, right?
We didn't cheese it. It was more or less like
We did like a bow cheese or something.
oh yeah, it was. Oh, if you want to call it that. My kinslayer is what I called it. I remember, dude. I used to be so good at that fucking game, man. Like back when I was playing it like religiously, and it was just like you were like. I remember you dashing around the arena, and I'm just sitting there chill. Just like, all right.
Yeah, yeah. Bloodborne probably has, you know, there's certain things that I think other games in the series did well. We're about to start talking about Dark Souls 3.
Yeah.
Which is one of my favorites alongside Bloodborne. But I think the one thing that Bloodborne did, you know, worlds above everybody else, is I think pretty much every boss in Bloodborne is really, really good.
Yes. And I could still even talk about, like, we didn't even get to the DLC fights. I mean, I did talk about Ludwig. Ludwig is probably my favorite fight in the DLC, but there's Lawrence, the first Vicar.
Right.
Vicar. He is an incredible fight. He's completely optional. Then you have Lady Maria, which is arguably the most beautiful fight in the game.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Because it's just a pure, like, they have, like, this flaming blood just dancing around the fucking arena. It looks incredible. And Lawrence, the first Vicar, is, like, honestly one of the hardest experiences you'll have. I mean,
unless you do it like we did and break it.
Yes, so I did it, max scaling. I hate that fucking fight. And when we were, as I Sherpa'd my cousin to the Platinum, we obviously had to fight Lawrence again. But this is on a much lower scaling.
Oh no, I thought this was on your game. We were doing this because you wanted me to help you because you were having trouble with him.
Oh no. I actually already had him beat it this time.
Okay.
We jumped in on your game. And one of my favorite moments in that game, and I don't have proof of it, but there's the one part of the fight where he's like, he has no legs, he's just going around slamming the ground.
Like a motherfucker, yeah.
And he's following my cousin in a circle, and I'm in between like this lava and him, and I'm just beating the shit out of him, and he dies. And all I do is he dies. I do the make contact gesture, and I'm like, claim your platinum, my son.
Yeah, it was funny because, like, you were telling me how hard the fight was and shit, and just for whatever reason, I don't know if that's just the way his AI was designed, to where, like, he was solely focused on me. I was just sitting there dashing around because, I used that, what's it called? What's that fucking artifact called?
Oh, First Hunter's Bone, yeah.
Yeah, First Hunter's Bone. I use that, so I'm just like, I'm dodging like a motherfucker, and the aggro never leaves me, so Todd's able to just like go behind him, and he's just whacking the shit out of him. And I'm basically just leading him on like a bullfighter while Todd's murdering him.
Yeah, it was so good. Before we move on to, we could talk about like the Old Hunters DLC as a whole. Like, I honestly think it's
really good piece of DLC.
Yeah, it's arguably one of my favorite DLCs of all time. And do I wish there was more DLC for Bloodborne? Yes.
I'm happy with the one that we got.
No, again, I'm happy with the finished product. Like, I didn't even mention Orphan of Kos. Orphan of Kos is a damn good fight. I will give it that.
It's annoying, though.
It is annoying. It is definitely annoying. It is pure, unadulterated bullshit occasionally. And it's just, I don't like doing that fight on max scaling. That's like the truest test of like the elitist bullshit in the Soul series.
Yeah.
Like, do it on max scaling. Do it with... I'm like, yeah, I'm good.
That's why I I just don't care to do these games on max scaling.
You know, you talk to me like a couple years back. I'm like, yeah, let's do this shit. Not now. I don't have the time for it.
I do maybe when with the Souls game, like with both Bloodborne and Dark Souls 3. I think I did.
You did
three or four playthroughs.
You did enough playthroughs to get all, especially in Dark Souls 3s, you got all the endings.
Yeah, I did like 3 or 4 playthroughs of each. So
I've kind of mentioned like the soundtracks already with Bloodborne, but I definitely got to shout out So I shouted out Ludwig's soundtrack, but that's more of like the whole fight as an experience.
Right.
But if I got to shout out like a piece of music, just a certain piece of music, you already know what I'm gonna say. Gerbin's.
Mm-hmm.
Holy shit. That soundtrack itself it really just shows how like somber that fight is.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't want to fight you.
No, I'm about to say he doesn't necessarily want to be fighting you.
Yeah. It's just his job, you know. He is the the protector of the dream and shit, and the nightmare and all that. It's such a good shit. Such a good shit. Any tracks you'd like to shout out?
There's several. There's we talked about Vicar Amelia earlier. I really like the music in her fight.
Yeah.
There's the whole game has an amazing soundtrack.
We technically got to shout out Lawrence as well. Lawrence has got a fantastic soundtrack. Like I know Tyler would say that Lawrence is probably his favorite soundtrack.
Yeah. I don't blame him for that.
Yeah, it's good. It's a good one.
Just good shit. Bloodborne is just a fucking really, really good game.
Yeah. It's the main reason it's my favorite game of all time.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's get to Dark Souls 3. So
hell yeah.
The main thing with Dark Souls 3 that I love, a lot of people, I know there's a couple people that in the community kind of were like, but the nostalgia factor. Mm-hmm. There's so much nostalgia in this game because it calls back to every game in the series, like even Demon Souls. Like,
I don't blame them for going that route because this is, as far as we know, it's the end of Dark Souls.
That's gonna be the final one. Like, I don't blame them for calling back to everything that we fell in love with in the series.
Mm-hmm.
So you have arguably some of the there is some really good fights in that game.
Oh yeah.
And like the only fight that genuinely annoys me, but it's still a really good fight, is Twin Princes.
Yeah, Twin Princes. We actually, I think we mentioned this on the last episode when we were talking about Neo. Twin Princess is an annoying like double boss kind of thing.
You know, we co-op this basically all the way through.
Yep, just as we did with Bloodborne. It was really from Bloodborne on, we pretty much Dark Souls and the Souls games are just a co-op experience for us now.
Yeah, it definitely is. Like it just became something we do. And one thing like I think I mentioned this earlier is like how the soul form from Demon Souls kind of came back to a certain extent.
Right.
With the Lord of Cinder form. I don't know. It's just basically being embered.
Yeah.
And it gives you more health, gives you your max health and everything. And it was just like, because a lot of people like got to the point where like, I don't like being hollowed. I don't like. What's the point of making my character if he's gonna be ugly?
Right.
I respect that, but it's like half the time like the stuff that I wear in those games, like I don't even see myself.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I never really see my face, and I think I actually fucked up on my first playthrough of Dark Souls 3 because I was doing the who is it? What's that fucker's name? Where you can basically hollow yourself for levels.
Oh, I forgot his name, but yeah.
Yeah, so I was doing that where I was like, you can do it for I think like a little side quest chain or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I hollowed the fuck out of myself and didn't know that I was doing that really. And like I remember one time I was trying on some gear that showed my face and I was like, whoa, fuck. I'm ugly.
You were hollowing yourself. That's funny.
Yeah.
They have like arguably there's like was it like three or four endings in this game, and just like every ending is like worth doing. Like there's I think the true ending is where you subjugate the fire.
Mm-hmm.
You become like what is it, the Lord of Hollows and shit.
Yeah,
I think that is the truest ending of that game. Like just a couple bosses I'll shout out. Like basically I could shout out basically any of the Lords of Cinder. Like those are all fantastic. The only one that you can probably give shit for is fucking was it Yorm? But even that Yorm is a really cool set piece.
And another callback.
Yeah, another callback. You have, because I remember the first time I jumped in there, I'm like, okay, all right, I'm going to beat his ass. Go to hit him, it's like you do like 20 damage. You're like, oh, shit, what? What's going on?
You have to use this sword that's located in the back of the arena by his throne.
Callback to
Demon Souls, right?
We had the Storm Ruler. And it's a cool little moment. Like,
isn't the boss that used the Storm Ruler against in Demon Souls, isn't it like a giant like stingray?
Yeah, it's basically a giant stingray.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really cool moment.
It's a big callback to that.
A really cool moment in both those games. And
basically, what you do with the Storm Ruler, you just have to like, it's a sword, and you sit there and you charge it, and when you hit him with it, not only does it chunk the fuck out of him, but it like staggers him and gives you just enough time to time it for another charge.
Yeah, I think the only time it doesn't stagger him is when he's in phase 2, and he'll just continuously beat your ass.
Yeah. So the reason a lot of people think it's bullshit is because once you know what to do, the fight sort of wins itself a little bit. But if you fuck up, it's really easy to fuck up, and he can definitely hit you like a truck.
And you can be elitist and just fight him normally. Because you can kill him.
Yeah, you can kill him normally.
I don't have time for that. Come on. Yeah. Abyss Watchers is fantastic.
Oh, I love Abyss Watchers.
Abyss Watchers soundtrack is actually really good too. Like that is just a really cool fight, and I'm an Artorias fanboy, so I was like kind of like, oh yeah,
that's a nice little treat.
Oh yeah, it's very nice. Then I mean, there's a lot of fights I could call out just in the base game. You have, I actually like Dragon Slayer armor. Like Dragon Slayer armor is really good.
I feel that.
I actually really love Aldrich. Aldrich is a really cool fight for me. Mm-hmm. Just that area in general, obviously, because you're returning to Anor Londo.
Right.
Spoilers.
Oh, I remember the first time that we went there, and like when the first time we stepped, because the game plays it in such a cool way. When you step onto that like kind of that all too familiar elevator.
Yeah, you're already recognizing it. You're like, is this?
I'm like,
no,
wait a
minute. It can't be.
And then when the elevator kind of spirals up and you see Anor Londo again, you're like, oh shit.
Yeah, dude. It's so fucking good.
And you go to that beautiful Ornstein and Smough room.
I could even talk of just like even before Anor Londo, like you can talk about like getting out of the catacombs of Karthus and just walking out into the Boreal Valley, and it is so beautiful. That is like actually one of my favorite just set pieces in the game. Just walking out of this dark, dingy catacomb and just seeing this beautiful like white, like snowy cityscape. It's so fucking good. And there is a couple things like. There's like, of course, there's a couple like bosses that are like whatever. There's like Deacons of the Deep, which is whatever. That's like a mob boss.
I think a lot of people's problems with Dark Souls 3 and Deacons is another sort of example. Is I think people bitch about some of the fights being a little too gimmicky or mechanics based.
Yeah, I definitely see that because there's a couple of them are like that.
I mean, we were just talking about fucking Yorm. Deacons is not, I wouldn't call it a gimmick fight, but it is a mechanic fight.
Yeah.
And what's his face later?
Wolner.
Oh, yeah, that's it. Wolner. He's a gimmick fight.
I'm gonna shout out something about Wolner that I love. There's like that really popular GIF of Dark Souls 1 in the Tomb of the Giants, where like somebody walks out with a lantern and you see like the big ass like I used to call them the dog skeletons. You just instantly turns away. I saw a GIF of Wolner like that and I'm like, yes, I love it.
Yeah, I mean Wolner is cool. He's cool.
He's an easy fight. He's
a gimmick though.
Yeah, he's definitely a gimmick fight. So hey, hit my bracers and boom, you're done. But still a really cool looking boss.
Yeah.
I think we talk about the DLC a little bit.
We pretty well covered it, except for I do want to, before we talk about the DLC, I do want to talk about the final boss.
Oh,
you gotta talk about the fucking Soul of Cinder.
Yeah, you're right. I almost forgot. Soul of Cinder. I know a lot of people were like about it. I know there's a couple people in the community that are like
I do think the actual fight itself is maybe a bit on the weak side.
Yeah, if you actually really analyze that fight, it's cool from like the fact that when you realize that you're basically fighting yourself.
Yeah.
Type shit, because he does basically everything that you do.
But
And
I mean, but even though it is sort of maybe a little bit on the weak side, it's still a fun fight.
I was saying it kind of gets the same treatment with Ludwig for me. Is like in his phase 2, that shit becomes absolutely beautiful to me. Like I won't even lie, I kind of teared up.
It's the music, man.
Yes, during phase 2, it's just like as phase 2 hits, you hear that piano from Gwyn's theme. You're like, wait, what? Get the fuck out of here. He stands up and like basically starts doing Gwyn's moves. You got the like the soul. It's like a remix version of Gwyn's theme, like playing around with like the Soul of Cinder's music, and it's so powerful to hear
It's
that
final tip of the hat, you know.
Yes, and just to hear that theme again, it's just because that theme is so fucking good.
It's iconic to the series.
Oh yeah, and to hear it remixed like that, you're just like, oh, I teared up. I won't even lie.
Yeah, it's awesome. That literally the music alone is what sets that fucking fight apart for me.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that. DLC wise in Dark Souls 3 though, like you have Ashes of Ariandel, which okay, that was the PvP DLC.
It was. It definitely was. It's only
just
two
to get
bosses.
just to get like the arenas out there, and I respect that. And it does set the stage for the Ringed City, and like I said, arguably brings probably the closest experience to Ornstein and Smough again, with Frida and Frida and Father Ariandel. Now that fight is fun. That fight is a fun experience if like you're to sit there and take the time. Oh, Frida.
Oh, Frida. I see it. I feel it.
I didn't expect his ass to be Scottish. I won't even lie. Like I'm sitting there, like I think I got to that fight before you, and I'm like, I jump in there, and I'm just like, okay, why though? It's fun. It's a fun experience.
It's a good fight,
and it sets up, the Ringed City, which the Ringed City is fantastic.
Yeah, the Ringed City is a great piece of DLC. It's second only to Old Hunters for me. Yeah. Granted, I didn't play the Dark Souls 1 DLC, so.
Again, Artorias of the Abyss DLC is fantastic for what it is. Will it hold up in your eyes if you went back and played it versus these? I don't know. I doubt it.
Yeah.
Because like I think I talked about this earlier. Is like seeing Artorias versus like these other fights now is like it's almost a joke.
Right.
Because Artorias and even Manus were thought to be like these like super fast, hard fights back in the day, and now it's just like, all right.
The reason I think it's going to be interesting for me, because like I said, I do at some point want to go back to Dark Souls 1 on PC. It's going to be really interesting going back because like the game has Dark Souls 3 especially feels like sort of a middle ground between Dark Souls and Bloodborne.
Yeah.
Like it is way more. It's definitely way more, fast-paced than Dark Souls typically is.
And I think that's kind of like... Sometimes I feel like my character's too slow to be fighting these fucking bosses sometimes.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, ugh. But it's still a fantastic game, and I think it's the perfect ending to Dark Souls, especially with Ringed City. The Ringed City is so incredible because we actually, see kind of like the Dark Soul in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And it's fucking... absolutely beautiful to me.
And that Gale fight.
Oh, that Gale fight is legitimately incredible, and it's basically I'll let you know right now, it's probably the most perfect you're basically fighting Guts from Berserk at that point.
Right.
With a lot of the shit that he does in that fight, and it's incredible. Like I won't even lie to you, I had to cheese that shit.
Yeah, I'm sure on max scaling that shit was bullshit.
No,
honestly, I had a good time fighting him on my game.
It got to the point where I was just like, I could fight you normally, but I just kind of want you to get, like, I just want you beaten at this point.
Yeah.
I pyromancy cheesed his ass, hide running away like a little pussy. I don't care.
We talked about Gale a little bit in episode 3. We also talked about Midir a little bit in episode 3.
Yeah, Midir, I'll say this about Midir, just as a shout out over the entire, all the games, Midir is the best dragon fight in all the games.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you have... And I actually didn't talk about this, so we skipped over Dark Souls 2's DLC fights. Is there's Sin the Slumbering Dragon. He's basically Calamite reskinned. Mm-hmm. Calamite being the dragon fight from the optional DLC boss with Dark Souls 1.
Yeah.
Calamite and Sin are really similar. Midir is just on a larger scale. Like, he's huge. There's a couple other fights, like that we didn't call out, but no, yeah, that's basically where I'm at. There's too much shit to cover.
Yeah, I mean, with Dark Souls, I mean, we could really be here all day.
Yeah, like for each of these games, I can honestly talk about them for about as long as the show is probably going to end up being. I could probably have stretched each game to this length,
to the entire length of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
We do. Before we move on from it, though, I do want to talk about the way that Dark Souls 3 did simplify certain game mechanics.
So this is one thing that's been going on through the entire series.
It's just been getting simpler and simpler and more streamlined.
It started cutting out like a lot of the materials needed. So like back in like Dark Souls 1 is like you had white Titanite, green Titanite, blue Titanite. You had so much fucking Titanite. It was insane.
For upgrading.
And just stats in general. Yeah. There was a lot of stats to cover. There was like a resistance stat at one point in Dark Souls 1.
And now by the time you get to Dark Souls 3, there's 7 stats.
Yeah, and even like Bloodborne's like that as well. Like Bloodborne has like one singular path. You know, Dark Souls 3 is like that to a certain extent. You have Twinkling Titanite for like these unique weapons. Then you have Titanite scales for your boss weapons, and then you have like the regular Titanite for your regular weapons. And then you have like infusion stones, but a lot of it is so much more simplified over the course of like these all the games that have come out. It has become like a perfect streamlined experience to like level up and like upgrade your gear.
And I think, and there's probably some people in the community, the elitists, that would probably disagree with me, but I think that's, for me personally, this is just my own take. I think that is what kind of puts Dark Souls 3 above Dark Souls 1 in my personal ranking. Bloodborne is obviously the best, but
like my personal ranking, I've said it a lot. It's the Bloodborne is at the top. From Dark Souls 1 is still number 2 for me. Then Dark Souls 3, then Demon Souls, and then Dark Souls 2.
I can't speak on Demon Souls and 2, but it's definitely Bloodborne, Dark Souls 3, and Dark Souls 1 for me. I just think that the simplification of the mechanics and the upgrade and all that stuff is so much more streamlined and more palatable by Dark Souls 3, and like I said, just the movement and just the way the game plays. Yeah. And is it a better game like from a design perspective? No, it's not. But from the actual in terms of actual gameplay, I think Dark Souls 3 is just so much more modernized.
Yeah.
If Dark Souls 1 were remade using the Dark Souls 3 engine, there wouldn't be a question in my mind that Dark Souls 1 is better.
I respect that, actually. There's just so much that we could have covered with this, but honestly, like, it's getting to the point now where it's just like, I could talk for another couple hours, but we don't want to do that.
No, we don't want to take up all of your fucking day. This is already going to be like an hour and a half long podcast. But
and like knowing me, as we're doing this podcast, I will continuously bring up Dark Souls to a certain degree.
It's the same way with me and Zelda.
Yeah.
This is the part 2. This is episode 10 was Seth really loves Zelda. Episode 11 is Todd really loves Dark Souls.
And I'm kind of gonna shout out like one thing, like life after Dark Souls. You have like these. It kind of spawned its own genre.
Oh, it definitely did.
The Souls-like games. You have Lords of the Fallen, which was like the first one that kind of came out, and for what it's worth, I respect that game. And it's I think a lot of people called it clunky Souls.
At least it went for it, though. You know what I mean?
Like, I actually had fun with it. I had fun with the time I put into the game. They actually came out, the same studio, I forget the studio. They came out with another game recently called The Surge, which I actually put more time into it because I actually respect a lot of the things that game was doing.
From the same developer, right?
Yeah, same developer of Lords of the Fallen. And it was kind of like their... I'll call it their Bloodborne-ification of because it is a more modern game, and it's like takes place in like this like futuristic. You have exosuits and shit, but it's a faster game. Even that, I gotta call out Salt and Sanctuary because that's probably the best side scroller Souls-like that we'll ever get.
Have there been others?
I don't know. I don't think so. And the thing is, like, we probably will get those, but I don't think anything's gonna. Because Salt and Sanctuary is good shit.
It's a good game. I just have not put as much time into it as I thought I would.
I want to put more time into that game. And I've already called out Neo a lot. Like, Neo is actually, I know there's some people in the Dark Souls community who are like about Neo, but I actually kind of like fell in love with it again because I've been playing it again lately with checking out the DLCs. And yeah, it's an interesting thing that Dark Souls spawned like its own genre, you know.
Yeah, there's actually there's a video, a pretty recent video from this YouTube series that I like called Game Maker's Toolkit that's specifically about that. About like the Dark Souls spawning its own genre, and is the Souls like, is that a new genre, and what does it mean to create a new genre and stuff like that. And you should check it out. It's actually really.
I'm gonna have to check it out because that sounds interesting to me.
One of my favorite YouTube channels, and he has several Dark Souls related videos that you would like. But for my money, really there hasn't been anything quite like Dark Souls. There are things that it does better than games that have done that have done the same things before it. Mm-hmm. But there are certain things about Dark Souls that are unique and that that are handled with a lot of love and care. I think really, and a lot of people have said this, but I think the only real corollary that you could point to before as a pre-Dark Souls is maybe Monster Hunter.
Yeah, I mean, I could definitely see that. Yeah,
that's about it though. And I mean, it's even experienced for me, you know, like, I can't go an episode without bringing up Breath of the Wild, Todd.
Oh, yeah. I think that's actually one of the main reasons that Breath of the Wild kind of is like my favorite Zelda game.
You can see that Breath of the Wild has those influences.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the main reasons I absolutely fell in love with Breath of the Wild, is just like kind of like there's a little bit of inspiration from Souls in that game, and I absolutely...
There definitely is. I mean, especially when you consider that it is a pretty isolated game. In the way that Souls is, it's an open world. I think it's a lot more. It's not as interconnected as Souls, the world of Souls is, but it does still feel like a Dark Souls kind of world. It's, you know.
Oh, by the way, you think you're slick? You're getting Zelda in this shit, bitch?
No, it felt like the way to go.
No, it definitely
had.
Actually,
you know, like I said, it definitely influenced it.
Yeah, I don't blame you for bringing it up, and it's.
You know, it's got the Breath of the Wild is by far the most difficult Zelda game, and it's also like, you know, there's the stamina and stuff like that, and the way that Breath of the Wild doesn't hold your hand. I'm not going to talk. This is not the Zelda podcast, but fucking Breath of the Wild.
The inspiration is there, and like that's just the thing. It's like it's going to other like games that have like existed. You know, it's influencing so much. You know, it's such Dark Souls is just an important series in video game history.
Definitely is. I would venture to say that Dark Souls is probably, in terms of when you look at video games over the course of the past 10 years or so, I think Dark Souls is definitely one of the crowning jewels of modern game design, still being something worth giving a shit about. It's not just shitting out, you know, sequel after sequel and microtransactions, and, you know, occasionally you get a Dark Souls. So I think that puts a pretty nice little bow on the Dark Souls podcast.
Yeah, you know, I basically covered everything that I wanted to cover, except, you know, I could do an episode for each of these games, but
yeah. But you know, I think about an hour and a half is a pretty good is a pretty good length for the Dark Souls podcast. So I don't know. Is there anything else you wanted to bring up real quick before we drop it?
I think that's about it.
Let's drop the mic on this shit, man. Thanks for listening, guys. We'll see you next week. Get dunked on.
See ya.